Hey, we're going to get started today. So we have a light crowd. Miriam's around, Lisa's around, Eleanor's around, and you and I are around. So, hey, we're just going to pretend we're having a nice old lunch together, having a great conversation. So to everybody else joining us today, either in person or listening to the recording, this is the Rhythm and Resilience series. I kind of, I have this tagline, small changes, big shifts, put the odds in your favor. I'm changing the tagline right now, small changes, big shifts, building rhythm and resilience. And so about 3 weeks ago, we started a series, my team and I, called Rhythm and Resilience to help us navigate this COVID time. And so as we were doing that, I started thinking about who inspires me and keeps me on track with life. And somebody that's in my head often is our guest today. But I want to start with a quote from yesterday. Heidi Hanna, one of the leading experts on stress in the country and the world, actually. And her quote was, "Stressing is a blessing when we learn how to use it for good." Stressing is a blessing when we learn how to use it for good. I think she had a lot of little nuggets, and today's guest will also have some. Edith Varley is a speaker, advisor, educator, and the founder of the Varley Group, where she drives an outcome-based mission to transform human potential into constructive contribution. In her practice, she uses systems thinking initiatives to identify needs and establish outcome-based objectives. Prior to founding the Varley Group in 2000, hard to believe 20 years ago, she served for 25 years in the business of chemical manufacturing, which would be interesting right now to talk about, right? Where she started in sales and ultimately led the company as CEO and owner. During her tenure, Edie helped people find the meaning in their work. That's a key word right now, meaning in their work and the value in their contribution. And as CEO, led the company to a double-digit net operating profit. What I'm thinking about, and the word I want to hone in there, first of all, say welcome. Welcome to Fun Friday.
Thank you, Michelle. It's a joy to be here.
I just giggle seeing your smile because it's just absolutely infectious. And hopefully people, I know you may be listening to this, but hopefully you're getting a chance to see the vibrancy of my guest today, Edith Varley. But I want to tackle the word meaning, because I think a lot of people are trying to understand what's happening with COVID-19, but hopefully they're being more intentional about what they leave behind in the normal world to go on to the next normal world. And so talk to me what the word meaning means to you.
At this moment in time, it's purpose, in effect. How are we living? How are we deciding to use this pause that's global? I have been often asked with my clients, well, what are you doing? Are you anxious? Absolutely not. In fact, I'm embracing this pause. Why? It's an opportunity to act as a sabbatical where you honestly pause, reflect, examine, and recalibrate intellectually, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And it's been a very sweet time. And since you're not gathering together using a Zoom go-to-meeting kind of opportunities, there's an engagement, not the same as one-on-one, but refreshing, different, and change is constant. Let's get real. It's natural and it's here. So finding meaning, finding purpose, it's never hard work that wears us out. It's really work that has no meaning, has no purpose. It's not something bigger than we are. And so I'm not looking at this as a world upside down. I'm looking at this world right-sizing because families are coming together. The board games, you can't even buy them now. They're just out of stock. You have to engage. You have to listen. So I just see this as a springtime of sorts.
Springtime in so many ways. Well, first of all, one of our guests listening live today, her and her family love games. And you may not know this about me, but I love games. That's the bad news about only having two of us live in our house and two four-leggeds. I wish they could play games. I love games. So I would say that it's so funny. We have a lake house. I'm like, if people don't want to play games, I'm not going. Because for me, that's how I relax because it gets my mind engaged. I want to tap what you said about Zoom and GoTo. Somebody was asking me because I've been doing a lot of speaking and my corporate clients have actually kept moving on. I've had very few speaking gigs that have canceled because we could do it via Zoom. And it's fascinating. I actually think the engagement's better. So.
Well, it's more natural. I mean, you're seeing people in their habitat, and no frills, and not a lot of bells and whistles. So it's natural, and I think authentic, more authentic.
Well, thinking about your career, and when we aged you a little bit, saying that you served 25 years in the business of chemical manufacturing, but you've had the Varley Group for 20 years. So if you do the math, that's 45 years. So I'm guessing you're just 48 years old today. But so you
Actually,
have a lot.
so I own 69 because now is the time. I graduated from high school in 1969, but I never hide my age. I mean, age is a number. And a lot of people, I never announce my age. Hey, I'm celebrating. Every day's a birthday. You wake up. So 69, now's the time.
69, feeling fine. So
Amen.
I wanted to thank you for acknowledging your wisdom, because I believe that you might have some more insight that somebody that's not lived as long and has had as many experiences during this time. So I'm curious, what was your biggest stress, which I know you're not a super stressed person, but what was your biggest gnaw or stress that you had before COVID-19 hit?
Being candid, I didn't have one. Now, let's qualify that. In the past, my first 25 years over the road, for 25 years, I worked 40 out of 52 weeks on the road, selling and manufacturing industrial chemicals. There was a low-grade fear constantly. And it was only at just about a half a century that I realized I was running in fear. I developed material on emotional intelligence, and that helped me regain my power. What I learned is stress, again, will keep you alive in a war, but it's a steady diet. It'll eat you alive. And when you're present, you don't have those emotions. And so the practice of trying to get present has been top of mind, moment to moment, day in and day out, and it becomes a practice. So did I have a stressor coming into this? No, I wouldn't own it, wouldn't claim it.
I want you to say what you just said again. And is that an original quote about stress will keep you alive in a war, but it'll eat you alive? Is that what you said?
I'm going to say it's original because it came out of my mouth, but I never put anything like, oh, that's my copyright, because I'm just an amalgam of 69 years of earning my stripes. I paid a high tuition in the School of Hard Knocks, and you got to own them. So that's about where we are.
Well, awesome. So you mentioned emotional intelligence. What does emotional intelligence mean to you?
Well, there is a formal definition I use, but essentially for anybody listening, colloquial, it's just being intelligent about your emotions. We all have an emotional portfolio. Most of us can't tap it. We don't know how to deliver words to express how we're actually feeling. And that gets us all banged up. If we're boundaryless as people, we're always giving our power away. So for me, being intelligent about your emotions is a very workable definition. Other than that, David Wexler used it as the aggregate or global capacity of an individual to act purposely, think rationally, and deal effectively, as I say, the risks of everyday living. That's why resilience is an EI competency, because it's learning how to manage the risks of everyday living and recover more quickly from the unexpected in a way that teaches us so that we can learn. We gain wisdom as a result of it. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And, as we were having a pre-conversation before Bay jumped on, I just, first of all, I miss your wisdom. When I think about the people in my life, and I'm very blessed. I have a very full life. I think about the words over and over that you share, because you have such it's just a way about it. And you just know it rings true. You feel it in your spine where you go, yep, yep. And one word that you said to me when we met, I don't know how many years ago we met. I want to say 5, but time goes fast. It could be 7. You said to me, honor your word. What does honor your word mean to you?
Well, we all have an honor code. Many people don't tap it. My attitude is every time we break our word to ourselves, we injure our honor, our spirit, and our self-esteem. Most of us focus on the word we keep with other people. Mm-hmm. And in that essence, you're out there. When you fail to honor your word to other people, you lose their confidence, their trust, the goodwill, and the good faith that they may have had in you. But most of us don't have a high standard of care for ourselves. There's a herd mentality. So when I think of honor your word, I recognize that even those words I offer to myself in the darkness of night, to myself that nobody else hears, when I fail to honor that, I know I'm injuring my honor, my spirit, and my self-esteem. And many of us, no matter our rank, title, and position, don't have a high degree of esteem. That's why we have welcome engraved on our forehead. We're a doormat. We give our power away constantly. And so honoring your word with a capital W, your word, W-O-R-D. I mean, there was the word in the beginning, but your word has to be sacred or it's not.
Well, it's interesting. You have no idea the impact you've made on me. I'm thinking about the conversations that I've had this week with a couple of our providers, and one of my other coaches, when I about 15 years ago said to me, she did not use this word, but this is what I heard is you're a fraud. And no one wants to be a fraud. I call it the 5-letter F word. It is because I was giving to everybody else but myself. I was being that martyr where, I'd come in at 7 a.m. for you and stay for 7 p.m. for you, but then I didn't have time to work out and didn't have time to really have a lot of self-care. And she also, like you, shifted my life where I started to value myself enough. And I believe one of the gifts I'm going to get out of COVID is time, and then re-looking at what I'm here to do in the next part of my life, in the next season, which has been fascinating. And I got Eleanor, and I've been trying to talk to my team saying, don't ask me what my vision is. I want to know what your vision is. And how could I nurture and support you along that? But I was talking with one of our providers, and I was telling her that the moment that I started taking care of myself, like I was encouraging my clients to do, that was a moment in time I could mark where my practice went to a whole nother level, because I was actually walking the talk. I wasn't just talking it, I was actually walking it. And then when you said honor your word to me, when the words come out of my mouth now, I think, can you really honor that? When somebody says, hey, let's get together for lunch, and I say, okay, ding me, or I'll ding you. And do I really do that? I mean, it's the littlest things. When I think about what you said to me, I want to tell you, I think about it every single day. That's the impact you've had on me.
Well, I say thank you for sharing that with me. For one, it's a great affirmation, because since I believe I've paid a lot of tuition in the School of Hard Knocks, it's my desire to, where I can, enlighten somebody else in some way, illuminate something for them, because we all have to live our life. I can't live somebody else's. I can suggest some things when asked. My caveat is always accept, reject, modify anything I offer here. I don't have the cornerstone on brains. And as you said, Edie, is that original? Anything I think that comes out of my mouth could be original, but I don't own it, don't claim it, because I think you get inspired. You're around different people, you get inspired, and what might land on your ears might be very valuable to somebody else. It sounds trite. It sounds overused. So I don't know. But in this conversation, when you were talking about the way people impact you, I've been impacted oftentimes. Let's go back to that giving component. Mm-hmm. I thought I was a giver, but a friend of mine said to me, Edie, I give you gifts, or I want to bless you too. And you go, oh, you didn't need to do that. So you're not really a giver, because you're looking for a proof or a receipt of some sort. You don't want to be obligated. A real giver is a generous receiver, because they're two sides of the same coin. You talk about illuminating something important to me. And so I have worked to be a generous receiver. And the best way to generously receive is thank you. 2 little words, hold, period. And so that's been a practice, allowing other people to bless us, bless the space between us.
Bless the space between us. Eckhart Tolle, I believe it says, I think it's Eckhart Tolle says that if the only prayer you said was thank you, it would be enough.
Sounds like a plan, right?
Sounds like a great plan. Well, just so you know, I do have some notes here. Thank you, Eleanor. And I typically don't reference them much, but there's a couple of key things that I want to have in this is called that COVID conversation that we're having would be about some magic words. The word celebrate, guide, connect, hope, very similar to what I talk about on the podcast. And celebrating you. I want to encourage people to celebrate their own families and their own lives. Maybe throw your family a party. If you want to, we're talking about Fun Friday. What's something fun you could do for your family today? So what are some of your ideas? Because I believe you have a very high fun factor.
Well, simple things that don't cost you a dime other than just being mindful of it. And that's calling elders. They're cooped up. They're the most sacred group here when it comes to this COVID-19. Give them a call and you could say, I have a 101-year-old that I call and she'll answer the phone, hello. And I said, this is a singing telegram for Kay Vierheller. Are you ready? What? And I try to belt out a song. It had to be you. It had to be you. I wanted to run. And I tell her, and I have her laughing. And I said, listen, I'm not going to quit my day job because I don't think I have the greatest voice. But that is something fun that brings out your creativity. Mm-hmm. The other thing, and I remember John O'Leary saying, what about writing a note? What does that cost? And when we're acknowledging somebody in that letter, it's pointing out what they did that enlivened us, that enriched our lives. So that's one. Some people are getting in their automobiles and driving by somebody's house who has a birthday and gathering as many people as they possibly can and hanging balloons out the window and yelling and screaming and honking the horn. That's something else too. Or baking a cake and acting like you're Julia Childs in your home. Have a video and say, I'm baking a cake just for you. Or baking cookies. Or whatever you're doing in your home, invite them in. Now, if they're elders, likely they don't have any technical skills. So the way I found to enrich somebody else's life and have fun for myself is the phone.
Invite them in. I would say, and invite yourself in, so for me, I've been, the first few weeks of this COVID-19, I was a little frazzled, not going to lie, very frazzled, trying to figure out my business and what's the next step, and then keeping my patients safe, keeping myself safe, keeping Crystal safe. And then the last few weeks, and all of a sudden I thought of the words I kept hearing, you got to find a rhythm, you got to find a rhythm, you got to find a rhythm. It's like a broken record to be resilient through this reset. And it used my creativity, and it also helps me be lifted because I get to talk to people like you. So as we are taking this pause, how do we really celebrate that? I really hear those words you're saying. So what about guidance? I'm sure that people have been calling you and saying, okay, wise one, wise woman, which you truly are. What's some of the guidance you're giving other people?
Well, in business, we say it depends. First, are they getting to work? Or are they working in a new unnormal, if you will, from what they used to do? How resilient are they in developing new skills so that they can still be as effective? Calming them down from the worry about what's going to happen tomorrow. Mm-hmm. Many of these people are successful, but now they're home. Some of them are trying to homeschool and work, wondering when this is going to be over. Their routine has been banged up entirely, and creating new rhythms, mm-hmm. being more resilient. In other words, being able to manage the change and the risk of uncertainty. Because this is, I think, part of our life. It's a lifetime skill, learning how to turn uncertainty into understanding. That's a critical component. And I think it's a cornerstone of resilience, because when everybody's banged up about, oh, what's going to happen tomorrow, they're no longer living in the only moment they have, right here and right now. And so it's establishing some order to their life. My attitude too is, what are the things that you always were going to do if you had time? Cleaning out the drawers, cleaning out the closets, starting a fashion show for yourself. What can I blast my into? And how have I trimmed down? And now I can wear those things I had 20 years ago that are still fashionable because it's come back. I just tried to get them to pause, reflect, and examine so they can recalibrate. You know, what would you like to see in a perfect world? What is it that's missing here today? How can we help establish some order as the leader of your own household? The model of how you manage uncertainty. You know, it's a big deal, I think, you know, uncertainty, understanding.
I'm wondering if part of the resilience is, I'm not sure we've been as resilient as a species the last decade or so. And I'm not judging it. I'm just making awareness of being somebody who deals with people one-on-one, you know, every day for 28 years and how it feels like it's shifted, that people are struggling more. There's more addictions, there's more suicides, there's more disconnection. How do you build resiliency? And what are some tools? You know, I think about it as tools. And for me, you know, I'm just hearing this conversation because I've not ever had this conversation before. And I'm thinking, okay, what have I done to build resilience? And part of it is a routine, consistency. You know, I like to eat a certain way. I like to work out a certain way. I build my practice a certain way. So what about tools? How do people build that muscle?
Well, I start with a framework. You know, what is it you'd like to see? Many of us have top of mind about what we don't want to happen. And my attitude is, okay, you've got this huge canvas called your life. All right. So how are you going to paint that canvas about what you want to see happen? What you're going to live into rather than what you don't want to see? Because of my friends and even those that I've counseled, when I learn what's top of mind, I see them going directly to that. And all of a sudden they've parachuted in and said, how did I get here? So the framework is first paint what you want it to look like, your life, the legacy of your life. What do you want those relationships that are closest to you to look like? So like a fire alarm, I know in advance if that fire alarm goes off, what I'm going to do. Same in relationships. This is what resilience, this is a framework and a cornerstone for a resilient life is, what do I want the relationships in my life to look like after an engagement with me? More committed, more productive, more energized after an engagement with me, or full of resistance, ill will, and maybe a spirit broken in two. And since it's people that we want around us when we're ill or dying, it's not the plaque on the wall. It's a revisiting to the framework of their own life. You know, and that goes back to self-awareness and then mastery of self. Once I know better, will I choose to do better? And in our busyness, being under Satan's yoke, we fail to be productive and contributing value in somebody else's life because we're so busy. So first you build a framework about what you want your life to look like, what you want those relationships to look like. What is your purpose? That's a big word, and there's lots of books on it. But if you can establish with clarity, what is the reason you're on this planet? Because none of us are getting off this planet alive. A tool would, again, be to be very mindful about staying present right where you are. So you've already established what you want your life to look like, and you want to live into that. You've already established what you want each of the relationships in your world to look like and to be after an engagement with you. And as you make that plan and keep that plan top of mind, it's a practice, because that's what life is, an experiment. But it's a continuous practice of self-development and developing others by our model. That's a full-time job. And when you finally pause enough and reflect, which is a leadership competency, long enough to really revisit, what am I doing? And does it add value? Am I making some significant contribution? It may never be on a marquee, but it matters here. And it matters to those commitments I've already made and am trying to honor. Because all of this goes back to, you mentioned the word self-care. I call it being self-full. Many people, both men and women, think taking in the oxygen is selfish. And I see if we do not consume the oxygen necessary to fulfill the commitments we've already made, first to ourselves, because we're the producer in this equation, then having enough oxygen to fulfill those commitments we've made, whether by omission or commission. So all of this again goes revolving around honor my word with a capital W. Your word matters. It makes a difference. We don't operate in isolation. So these are just some of the things I'm thinking about when you're trying to develop tools and frameworks that allow us to develop these skills necessary to be flexible, nimble, agile in thought, word, deed, and action. A lot of people don't have agility in this day and age. And I think it's a leadership competency that can be developed. These are all skills. That's why emotional intelligence is a smart skill. Once you discover your own emotional portfolio and understand who and what get on your last good nerve, you can start to plan in advance. Ooh, when that happens, I'm going to do this. I just finished a book called Boundaries. Maybe you're familiar with it. When to say yes and how to say no. Woo! What a read. Which is another one of the things in my pause, reflect, and examine what I'm doing is reading, not only just books for entertainment, but for growth and development. And that was one book, and it's a power hit because it says, unless you as an individual understand and own your own real estate, the first word of empowerment is no. And we have to teach children its power. But the child in all of us has to learn it too. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it.
So what you gave us a great book on boundaries. I think that's a good start too. But I'm thinking about purpose book. You mentioned there's several of them. I've got one that comes to my mind. What comes to your mind when I say, "Gosh, what book would you recommend on purpose?"
Well, 7 on a faith-based side, a purpose-driven life. On a business side, the economics of a purpose-driven organization. Mm-hmm. And because there is always an economic value to somebody who knows who they are, knows where they're going, and has that purpose that illuminates the pathway for other people. When we live in alignment with what we say we believe and what we do, that's an elixir to folks who are adrift. So the purpose-driven life, I think, and then the economics of a purpose-driven organization, those are 2 that come to my mind. But whether you read a book or you don't, just establishing for yourself that baseline, I'm here because it's almost your mission statement. Long ago, several years ago, I think John O'Leary invited me for an interview. And he said, well, what's your purpose? And I said, well, pretty simple. It's trying to put a smile on God's face, okay? And learn how to love in the divine quality of Jesus. That ain't easy because people test our mettle. And putting a smile on God's face means ever present to, am I your instrument of peace on this earth? And that might be way out there, but he asked and I told him. So that's not a job. That's really, for me, a life-giving pursuit.
Well, I've done a lot of work on purpose and read Lori Beth Jones' book he loved her book on that and really helped me kind of iron it down, and mine is fairly simple: connect and inspire people to live well. And for me, that connection is connection to your higher self and dialing in and listening. So when I kept hearing the word rhythm and resilience, it's like, okay, I hear you. And take some action on that. You know, there's, I think about the people I get invited, and I loved how you said living life is about people, and I call it LTRs, lifetime relationships. And I'm actually going to be having a conversation on the Wellness Consortium Facebook page for those of you that are in the wellness group with Tom Hill, a mutual friend of ours, who's a master of lifetime relationships. And I call myself a people collector. Not really, I mean, there's the connection, but really it's how do you become valuable in each other's lives, whether it's showing up with a smile or showing up with a kind word or saying yes when your friend calls and says, hey, would you help me out on my Rhythm and Resilience series? So I think about that connection of really helping people, but people are, a lot of people are lost. You know, whether they're 25 or they're 45 or they're 75, I see a lot of people lost. What's your wisdom on that? And I know you've covered a lot of it already. If people just listen to the first 20 minutes of this conversation, there's so much wisdom. And by the way, if you have questions, now's a great time to put them in the chat, and anything that you're taking away from this conversation, I'd love to hear it so we can give Edie some love. So back to my question.
You can put that love on, baby, because LOVE is a 4-letter word, and I love it. Michelle, I want to compliment you and your creative juices in the midst of this uncertainty with the Rhythm and Resilience series, where you've invited people with themes every day and every week to just have a conversation and share where they are. Because we all have pearls of wisdom. We might not recognize them, but take a bow for the contribution of value you're bringing to people's lives. And particularly because you record these, and so they're available for anybody that clicks on at any time of their day to tune in and turn on to something that might inspire them and help them overcome the hiccups that they might be experiencing at this moment. Going back to people who feel lost, it's a state of mind. And training our minds is an important ingredient in our personal development. How we think translates then often to what we do, how we feel. And I believe since we have a thinking brain and a feeling brain, when we marry those, we can be soaring because we've blended it. So since I think loss, feeling lost, again, a state of mind. So what do we do when we feel scattery, have a bit of anxiety, and again, the uncertainty? How do we take some of that uncertainty out of that and create some understanding? It's hooking up perhaps with other people that we've admired who seem to be living a more peaceful, calm, liberated life. You know, you're not encumbered. Because ultimately, if we think back, when we lose everything, all of a sudden that's when you find what's most important. What are the things we most value? And this is a great time in my mind for a lot of people to start to get lean in their thinking, to activate the simplicity of life and resurrect for themselves sort of, why did I get married? Why did I have children? Why did I select this vocation or this career? Does that all still have the same value and meaning to me? Or have I voided the meaning, being so busy? And that contributes to our no longer believing that the contribution we make has meaning, has value, is purposeful. And so it's a great time to think about how words create worlds. Rhythm and Resilience spoke to you, and then you created this, and it speaks to a lot of people. Do we have a rhythm in our life? Agile, fluid, that we can move and chuck and jive and really manage the risks of everyday living and recover from the unexpected more quickly in a way that helps us learn from the choices we made, be they omission, I wasn't present to that choice, or commission, I was right on it. So that would be one way I would look at anybody who states, gee, I'm lost. But most of us do a lot of this in the world behind our eyes. We're speaking to ourselves 1,000,000 times a minute about things as we sort of survey the world in front of us. I'd say, take a pause, take a listen. To your point, listening to that small voice within you. But we have to do that in stillness and quiet, in solitude. The noise that's around us, even if it's white noise, really disturbs our countenance, disturbs the spirit within. As you know, something I did trademark was, I believe, the most valuable, renewable resource in the world is the human spirit. And I capitalized human and spirit. We all know we're spirit. And it is the most valuable, renewable resource in the world. And each of us has an opportunity to renew the spirit in another person. So when we're feeling sorry, pitiful, lost, maybe we look outward a bit and see how that smile, that kind word, that thank you can shift somebody else's perspective, give them a new lease on life, afford them a little bit of a pause in the distress that a lot of people feel because their schedule has been reordered and not of their liking until they decide, this is my life. And look at the relationships. Are they life-giving? Are they life-threatening? Or are they life-taking?
There's a lot to unpack there. I'm thinking about renewing, and that's another great R. And, where we're getting rejuvenated and but I do like that, the renewing of the human spirit. That's a good quote, Eleanor. I'm not sure, you'll have to listen to capture that. But during this rhythm and resilience time, are we really renewing? And I want to tell you, I'm getting renewed. And I know this is Fun Friday, but I want to tell you, I'm having so much fun in this conversation. So, one of the words I use, once again, celebrate, guide. I say these again, so I remember to always bring them up. Celebrate, guide, connect. We've got some phenomenal guidance today. I believe that if you just listen to one of the series, if you just take some of the guidance we got today, you're going to shift your life. Small changes, big shifts. Sometimes I live out the F, but you got what I mean. Small changes, big shifts. You got to get this shift out of your life. And that's what you're talking about. Edie, how can people, here's the deal. How can people connect with you? You're really not on social media. We know that. We've talked about that before. How can people connect with you? Do you have a book they can buy? Are you doing coaching?
Well, the answer is you're right. I'm not on social media. I'm trying to manage LinkedIn and my emails. Okay. You can call me a fossil if you want. I do offer counsel to executives or any individual. I believe we have the answers within us, and oftentimes having someone unpack it aloud gives them an opportunity to hear what they're saying and then repeating it back and guiding them. It's a beautiful word, guiding them to the answers that are significant for them. So yes, I do that, and I'm doing it now by Zoom. And I do it by phone too. My mobile phone, 314-604-2926.
Hang on. Say it again. 314. You're going to give it. You guys remember where Reverend Patricia Bass gave you the opportunity to reach out to her for a prayer? Hopefully some of you did. All right. Eleanor, did you, Eleanor? Okay. So
314-604-2926. And my office number, landline, I still have it. And I don't have a caller ID on it because I believe every call is divine appointment. Even if it's a solicitor, and I get many of those too, robocalls, but I try to put a lift in their step and a song in their heart. It's 636-225-9211. I'm operating from my home. This is my office. I'll give you a small little tour. If this works, I don't know, can you see? I'm going around. Wait a minute. You can tell I'm a rookie technologically, going around and around and around. I have a beautiful garden. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay. I've got a lot of people's pictures, folks I love. My calendar, I don't put everything on that calendar until it's locked and loaded. This is what I'm looking at from my right, your left, and going back. And I think you saw that. Now I'm going to try and put this camera back on here. Oh, how's that good? Can you still see me?
Yes.
All right.
So excellent.
This is where I operate, world headquarters. The Varley Group is an army of one. My clients are my group because they're the ones that spread the word, the good word, if you will. And all my business last 20 years has been word of mouth. And I honor that because I think by divine providence, my business has grown every year. Like you, my speaking engagements have been canceled, which again, divine, so our medium now were those individual clients. I've been using this medium or the phone. Many of them have known me. It's like Edie on the go. Oh, I'm about to go into this meeting. Remember we were talking about such and such. And I try to provide some counsel right then. I believe a lot of people already have the answers. Now, when it comes to emotional intelligence and helping executives and individuals develop the smart skills of emotional intelligence, that's a longer process because a smart skill is one that you can actually develop. A lot of people call them soft skills. I don't like that. I think it undermines the power of someone in taking their power back and living a self-full life where they're calling the ball in their own life. No regrets. They're not looking back, living in the past. They're living in the present and creating a beautiful legacy of their own making. Ownership, owning what they say and do, owning how they think, and owning the opportunity to respond versus react to other people, places, and circumstances. So, did I answer that question?
Yes. And you use the word legacy a few times today. And I believe, first of all, you have a phenomenal legacy. I'm thinking about, I'm part of this mentoring group. I'm like, I need to get you on a call with them. I'm going to reach out to you about that. I hope that everybody on the call today, or anybody listening afterwards, thinks about legacy, but how do you live today, and how do you go through this pause and this reset with a lot more intention to the way you spend your time. It's very finite, this thing called time, and how do we live that? This is a great time for you to share your love with Edie. Edie, what have I not asked you that you think you want to share today?
That's a stump. What have you not asked me that I want to share? I came into this with no expectations, although I do want to share that the root of all conflict is unmet expectations. I knew our theme was rhythm and resilience, and I was looking for you to prompt so that whatever came out was just unplugged. Edith Varley unplugged.
Well, you definitely delivered. I'm kind of, it's almost like we're amping up here. Either I'm getting better at asking questions, or we save some great guests. Every guest just keeps building on each other, which is totally awesome. I really love that.
I will say this, and I sent this to you, but you're a very skilled interviewer, highly skilled, and it makes everybody comfortable that they can just be themselves, and things resonate with you, and then you pull them back out because you might want the audience who might have missed something. Again, a lot of noise. We miss some pearls of wisdom, but it's always been a joy to be interviewed by you and communicate with you, just converse about everyday subjects.
Well, you just are a dear soul, and I want to claim you as I know you have some siblings in your life. How many siblings do you have?
I have 10 that are living. I'm one of 14. 4 of my brothers have passed away. And we've laughed about this before. Love's a verb with 14 kids. I don't know how my parents did it, but I'm grateful they didn't stop with me. And so there's 10 of us living. And on Sundays at 10 o'clock, we use Zoom to stay in touch because they're in California, they're in Florida, they're in Arkansas, they're in Tennessee. There's 5 of us in St. Louis, but and our nieces and nephews get on there as well. So what are ways to keep the family together? It's great. And then we go around the horn and we say, what's doing in your life? Share something with us. And there's something always exciting happening when you invite people to share their story. And we put a thing, we say 90 seconds, but it's great. And not everybody talks. And my one brother is the Zoom coordinator. So it works out beautifully. So
were you doing it before this happened, before COVID?
No, we were actually meeting before COVID. Every month, the 5 in St. Louis would meet, and then we'd call up the brothers and sisters that weren't there and try to include them through FaceTime. But and I'm certain that puts a smile on my parents' face, because that's what they wanted for us, that in their passing, the family would stay tight and close together. And that ain't easy, all different personalities, etc. But I wouldn't trade it. My parents had the right DNA for me, and for that, I'm grateful.
Well, I have to tell you, I don't have any sisters. I have 3 brothers. But the words I keep hearing is, I'm going to adopt you as my big sister. And
accept.
So yes, but anyhow, just so once again, I'm having the time of my life. And thanks for, once again, you guys are all sitting in on our private conversation, or not really so private, but what a fun Friday for me, having you join us. I'm so grateful that I gave you an invite and you said yes, without a doubt. What I want to do is remind our listeners to, if you feel called to share what you're learning, zero pressure. There's a lot of people hurting on the planet, and how could we give them a little hope, or a lot of hope in this case, that as they start to reframe their minds, not to what they're saying outside, but what they're also saying inside. And it takes being surrounded by people, books, songs, the right shows, that you can transform your life. I want to tell you, I know it's true, because I've transformed my life because of people like Edith Varley that have helped me just take the next step into my own magnificence, so that I can be closer to the vision that God called me to do. So you've just been a light today. So we're going to continue this. We got another week of Monday through Friday. I want to confirm with you that we are going to continue in the month of May, and we're going to do just Monday, Friday. We'll do Motivational Monday and Fun Fridays. We've got some great guests lined up. We will not disappoint you there. Maybe not quite as full of nuggets as today. This was, every single word came out of your mouth was nuggets. It's hard to capture all, because it's just the whole conversation was a nugget. But on Monday, who do we have on Monday? Hang on, I've got it written down. Hang on. I thought I had it written down. Oh, we have Kathy Nelson. Kathy Nelson is head of the Sports Commission in Kansas City, and she's the person who had to make the call that we would not have the Big 12. So, and as some people say, maybe we avoided the Mardi Gras moment, where so many people got infected. But I just get chills. There's the Holy Spirit speaking to me. I get the chills right here on my left side.
I have a closing idea.
Great. Well, hold on one second. But having the courage to make that decision that was unpopular, especially when you're Kansas Jayhawk fans in this city. So, all right, I'm going to let you give your closing idea, then I'm going to close up the show. If you have any questions, now's the time to ask. Anybody? I'm watching the chat. Go ahead, Edie.
For those of us that feel cabin fever, perhaps uncertain, I would say, turn complexity into clarity for yourself. Turn uncertainty into understanding, and volatility into your value proposition.
Once again, unpack that. It's interesting you say that, because clarity, yeah, great. Yeah, high five on that one. What was the other word you used with clarity? What was the first one?
Complexity. Turn complexity to clarity. Because all of our lives are complex, and when we don't have order and we're not clear about our purpose, it gets ever more complex. So turn complexity in your life to clarity. Turn the uncertainty into understanding, and turn the volatility that's out in the world within your home. Make that your value proposition. Everybody else might be spinning around, but you've got understanding, you've got clarity, and you've got value, and you bring that to every person you touch. Think about it. No.
Well, the reason I want to bring up clarity is people ask me, how are you? And I said, I'm getting clear. And that's exactly what's been happening for me, is I'm just getting more and more clear and not to run back into what was normal. And I've had to create a home office here because I shared an office with Crystal. We're both on Zoom a lot, and I'm loving it. And I'm loving having conversations with people. So I probably won't be back in the office as much. Not probably, it's a fact. So, well, I'm going to wrap up the show because we always like to begin on time and end on time. I want to give you a big old heart hug and say thank you for joining me. I want to give you some love, and I want to just to remind you how you inspire me, but I want to remind you how you inspired the guests, because sometimes it's hard to watch the chat and be so present. There's the phone number someone's sharing. Your light shines brightly. Thank you for speaking to us today. You're a lot of fun Friday. Your honesty and warmth is digestible. That's great. Digestible. What an amazing talk. I think everything you said is worth writing down, every single word, one quote after another. Thanks for a great week. Makes me want to straighten up my office. Excellent speaker. So much to think about. So true. Mark said he'll miss us all this weekend, but you can go back and re-listen to this one, especially lots of nuggets, and see how you can really get clear in your own life. So, whoops, I got a guest coming. So timing. Anyhow, you inspire me just by your presence, by your wisdom. And once again, the biggest inspiration is I'm not sure I've asked anybody to be my big sister. And there's my dog, Skylar, talking. So thank you so much for joining me today. Everybody have a great weekend.
Michelle, thank you. Aloha.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.